Billionaire CEO walked into a classroom and did something that made every student freeze. He didn't yell at the girl sleeping in the back row. He didn't embarrass her. He took off his $10,000 jacket, draped it over her shoulders, and said 3 words that would change both their lives forever. Let her sleep. What happened next started a scandal that would threaten to destroy them both. Welcome to Afro-Korean Tales Hub. Please like, share, and subscribe. The lecture hall buzzed with whispers as Professor Kim's pointer slammed against the whiteboard. Someone explain this concept, he barked, his eyes scanning the rows of students. Then he stopped. His face hardened. You. The one sleeping in the back. Every head turned toward the last row where Amaka sat slumped over her desk, her braids falling across her arms like a dark curtain. She didn't move. The professor's voice rose. Did you hear me? Or is my class so boring that you can't stay awake? Still nothing. A few students snickered. The professor started down the aisle, his footsteps echoing like a countdown. But before he could reach her, the door at the back of the hall opened. 3 men in dark suits entered, followed by someone who made the entire room fall silent. Ji-hoon Kang moved through the space like he owned it because technically he did. At 32, he was one of South Korea's youngest billionaire CEOs, and Seoul National University's largest donor. His presence here was unannounced, unexpected, and absolutely commanding. Students straightened in their seats. The professor froze mid-step. Please continue, Ji-hoon said quietly, but his voice carried. His eyes had already found what everyone else was staring at. The sleeping girl. The only person in the room who hadn't noticed him. Professor Kim cleared his throat, suddenly uncertain. I was just addressing a student who appears exhausted. Ji-hoon interrupted, walking past him. He stopped beside Amaka's desk. Up close, he could see the shadows under her eyes, the slight tremor in her hands even in sleep, the way her body seemed to have simply given up. When was the last time you slept? He asked softly. The room held its breath. Amaka's eyes fluttered open. For a moment she looked confused, disoriented. Then she saw him standing there. Expensive suit, intense gaze, everyone watching, and panic flooded her face. She sat up too quickly, nearly knocking her books to the floor. I'm sorry, she started, her accent thick with exhaustion and fear. How many jobs do you work? Ji-hoon asked. The question caught everyone off guard. Amaka blinked. What? Jobs? How many? She swallowed hard. 3. I work 3 jobs. The professor opened his mouth to speak, but Ji-hoon raised a hand without looking at him. And you're a full-time student with scholarship requirements to maintain. When exactly are you supposed to sleep? Amaka's eyes widened. How did he know about her scholarship? I manage, she whispered. Clearly. Ji-hoon's tone wasn't mocking. It was something else entirely. He turned to his assistant. Get me her file. Complete academic record, scholarship details, everything. Then he looked back at Amaka. Really looked at her, and something shifted in his expression. What's your name? Amaka Okonkwo. Nigerian. Yes. He nodded slowly, as if filing away information. Then he did something that would change everything. He removed his suit jacket and draped it over her shoulders. The fabric was warm from his body heat, and probably cost more than her entire month's rent. Sleep, he said. Finish sleeping. I'll handle this. What? No, I can't. You can and you will. He turned to the professor, who looked like he'd swallowed something unpleasant. Continue your lecture. If this student falls asleep again, it means your teaching isn't engaging enough. I suggest you make it more interesting. The threat was subtle but clear. Professor Kim's face went through several shades of red before settling on pale acceptance. Of course, Mr. Kang. Ji-hoon walked to an empty seat in the middle row and sat down, crossing his legs as if he had all the time in the world. His bodyguards took positions by the doors. The message was unmistakable. He wasn't leaving, and neither was his attention on what happened next. Amaka sat frozen, his jacket heavy on her shoulders, smelling of expensive cologne and something uniquely him. Around her, students whispered behind their hands. She caught fragments. Did you see that? Who is she? Why would he care about some foreign student? The lecture resumed, but everything had changed. Professor Kim spoke carefully now, avoiding the back row entirely. Amaka tried to focus on the material, but her mind spun. Why had he done that? Why had Kang Ji-hoon, publicly defended her? She glanced at him once and found him already watching her. Their eyes met for exactly 3 seconds before she looked away, her heart hammering. When she dared to look again, he was staring at the front of the room, but something about his posture suggested he remained acutely aware of her presence. The class ended in a strange, tense silence. Students packed their bags quickly, throwing curious looks between Amaka and Ji-hoon. As people filed out, Amaka stood on shaky legs and approached him. She held out his jacket. "Thank you, but I can't accept this. I appreciate what you did, but what?" He didn't take the jacket. "You're worried about what people will think? They're already thinking it." Her hands trembled slightly. "Exactly. You don't understand. I'm already different enough here. I don't need more attention. I don't need people thinking I'm getting special treatment because I saw you." He stood, and suddenly she was very aware of how tall he was, how much space he occupied. "What exactly did I see, Miss Okonkwo? A student so exhausted she's risking her health and her scholarship. A young woman working herself to death in a foreign country, because the system demands perfection while offering no support. Tell me, what's wrong with seeing that?" Amaka's throat tightened. No one had put it quite like that before. No one had made it sound like her struggle mattered, like it was worth noticing. "People will talk," she managed. "People always talk. Usually because their own lives are too boring to occupy their attention." He finally took the jacket from her hands, but instead of putting it on, he folded it over his arm. "Walk with me." It wasn't really a request. His bodyguards moved into formation as he headed for the door. Amaka grabbed her bag and hurried after him, very aware of the stares from students still lingering in the hallway. Ji-hoon seemed oblivious to them all. Or perhaps he was just so accustomed to attention that he no longer registered it. They walked across campus, an odd procession. Billionaire CEO, exhausted foreign student, and silent bodyguards. Students parted like water before them. The autumn air carried the scent of roasted chestnuts from a nearby vendor, mixing with the sharp smell of ginkgo leaves. Finally, Ji-hoon stopped at a quiet courtyard, gestured for his guards to maintain distance, and turned to face her fully. "I looked into your file before I came to that class," he said without preamble. "Top of your program despite working 3 jobs. Scholarship dependent on maintaining perfect grades. Visa status contingent on enrollment. One misstep and you lose everything. Am I wrong?" Amaka's defenses rose. "That's my business. It became my business the moment I saw you collapse from exhaustion in a classroom I fund." His tone wasn't harsh, but it was absolute. "Do you know what I see when I look at you, Miss Okonkwo?" She almost didn't want to know. "What?" "Wasted potential. Not because you lack talent, but because the system is designed to ensure people like you never get the chance to use it." He stepped closer, his voice dropping. "You work at a convenience store, a restaurant, and do tutoring, correct? How do you?" "I make it my business to know things. Here's what I'm proposing. Quit all 3 jobs. I'll hire you as my personal assistant. 1 job better pay than all 3 combined, and hours that won't kill you. You'll maintain your scholarship, keep your visa, and actually have time to sleep." The offer hung in the air between them like something impossible. Amaka stared at him. "Why would you do that? Does it matter?" "Yes. It matters very much." She crossed her arms, trying to project confidence she didn't feel. "Rich people don't help without wanting something. So what is it? What do you want from me?" Something flickered in his eyes, approval maybe, or respect. Smart question. The honest answer? "I don't know yet." He pulled out a business card, held it between 2 fingers. "But I do know that I can't stand watching talent burn out because the world is too blind to recognize it. Take the job. Or don't. Either way, this conversation stays between us." Amaka took the card, her fingers brushing his for just a moment. The card was heavy, expensive stock with minimal information. His name, a phone number, nothing else. "I need to think about it. You have until tomorrow morning. After that, the offer expires." He turned to leave, then paused. "Miss Okonkwo, whatever you decide, stop falling asleep in class. It's dangerous, and not just to your grades." Before she could ask what he meant, he was gone. his bodyguards falling into step behind him. Amaka stood alone in the courtyard, the business card feeling like it weighed 1,000 pounds. That night, in her cramped apartment that she shared with 2 other students, Amaka couldn't sleep despite her exhaustion. She kept turning the card over in her hands, kept replaying the conversation. Her roommate, Yuki from Japan, peered at her from the top bunk. "You've been staring at that for an hour. What is it?" "A job offer." "From who?" "Kang Ji-hoon." Yuki nearly fell off the bed. "The Kang Ji-hoon? How? Why? What happened?" Amaka told her everything. By the end, Yuki's eyes were wide. "Are you insane? Take it. Do you know how many people would kill for that opportunity? That's what worries me." Amaka set the card on her small desk. "What does a man like that want with someone like me? It doesn't make sense." "Maybe it doesn't have to make sense. Maybe it's just luck." "I stopped believing in luck a long time ago." But even as she said it, Amaka was calculating. The money would be life-changing. She could stop working herself into the ground, could actually focus on her degree, could breathe. But at what cost? She didn't sleep that night. At dawn she made her decision. She picked up her phone and dialed the number on the card. It rang once before a crisp voice answered. "Kang Ji-hoon's office. This is Amaka Okonkwo. Tell him I accept." The response was immediate, as if they'd been waiting for her call. "Mr. Kang will see you at his office at 9 a.m. A car will collect you from your address at 8:30. "Wait, how do you know my address?" "Mr. Kang is thorough. The car will be a black sedan. Don't be late." The line went dead. Amaka stared at her phone, her heart racing. What had she just agreed to? The car arrived precisely at 8:30. It was sleek, expensive, and completely out of place in her neighborhood. The driver opened the door without a word. Inside, the leather seats were soft, the air conditioning perfect. Amaka had never been in a car this nice. As they drove through Seoul's morning traffic, she watched the city transform from her working-class neighborhood to the gleaming towers of Gangnam. Kang Group headquarters rose into the sky like a monument to power and money. The building was all glass and steel, reflecting the morning sun until it hurt to look at directly. Amaka felt small as the car pulled up to the private entrance. The driver opened her door, and suddenly she was being ushered through corridors that smelled like expensive air fresheners and ambition. Ji-hoon's office occupied the entire top floor. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a view of Seoul that made Amaka's breath catch. The city sprawled below like a kingdom, and up here it was clear who ruled it. Ji-hoon stood at the window, his back to her, phone pressed to his ear. He was speaking rapid Korean, his tone sharp and commanding. When he sensed her presence, he ended the call without preamble. "You came," he said, turning around. He didn't sound surprised, but something in his expression softened when he saw her. "Good. Sit." Amaka sat in one of the chairs facing his massive desk, trying not to show how overwhelmed she felt. Ji-hoon didn't sit behind the desk. Instead, he pulled a chair to face her directly, eliminating the barrier. The gesture felt significant somehow. "Before we begin, I need you to understand something," he said. "This isn't charity. I don't do charity. You'll work and you'll work hard. But you'll also learn more in 3 months here than 4 years in that university. Are we clear?" "Crystal." "Good." He slid a contract across to her. Standard NDA employment terms, salary. "Read it carefully." "I'll wait." The salary made her eyes widen. It was more than 3 times what she'd been making from all her jobs combined. The terms were strict but fair. But it was the NDA that gave her pause. "This is very comprehensive," she said carefully. "I require absolute discretion. You'll see and hear things that cannot leave this office. Can you handle that?" Amaka met his eyes. "Can I ask you something first?" "You can ask." "I may not answer." "Why me? Really? Don't give me that line about wasted potential. There are thousands of struggling students in Seoul. Why did you choose me?" Ji-hoon was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was different, softer, more honest. "Because when everyone else was staring at you to mock or judge, you didn't flinch. Even exhausted, even humiliated, you held your ground. That's rare. That's valuable." He leaned forward slightly. "And because I've been where you are. Different circumstances, same feeling. Like the world is designed to break you. and you're too stubborn to let it. Something passed between them in that moment. Recognition, understanding, a connection neither had expected. Amaka picked up the pen and signed the contract. When do I start? Now. The next 3 months were the most intense of Amaka's life. Ji-hoon wasn't exaggerating when he said she'd work hard. She managed his schedule, attended meetings where decisions worth millions were made with casual conversation, learned to read the subtle power dynamics in every interaction. But she also learned about him. Ji-hoon was brilliant, ruthless in business, but unexpectedly kind in private moments. He remembered the names of every staff member, knew their birthdays, noticed when someone was struggling. He was also intensely private, keeping everyone at arm's length even as he commanded their loyalty. Except with her, Amaka realized. Somehow, gradually, she'd become the exception. It happened on a late Tuesday night, 2 months into her employment. They were alone in his office reviewing quarterly reports. The city lights of Seoul spread beneath them like scattered diamonds. Amaka had stayed late without being asked, had stopped asking herself why she kept finding reasons to stay. "You're frowning at that page like it insulted your mother," Ji-hoon said, not looking up from his own documents. "The profit margins in the Jakarta division don't make sense. The numbers are good, but..." She hesitated. "But what?" Now he looked at her. "In my language we have a saying, a tree that grows overnight will not stand for long." She met his eyes. These profits grew too fast. Something underneath isn't stable. Ji-hoon went very still. Then he reached across the desk for her report, his hand brushing hers as he took it. Neither of them moved for a heartbeat. "Say that again," he said quietly. "The proverb, Asasai Toro in Abalaya Gagi Eguzajide." The Igbo words felt natural on her tongue after months of only speaking English and broken Korean. It means rushed success has weak foundations. He was staring at her now with an intensity that made her skin warm. "We have something similar. Sianggubaj miakni and bapi maga jialanda." Rice eaten in haste gets stuck in the throat. He leaned back, but his eyes never left hers. "You just identified what 3 analysts missed. Tomorrow, I want you to audit the reports completely." "I'm not an analyst." "No. You see what analysts don't. They look at numbers. You see the story behind them." He paused. "How did you learn to think like that?" "My father." The words came out before she could stop them. "He was a trader in Lagos. He taught me that numbers only tell you what happened. People tell you why." "Was." "He died when I was 16. Heart attack at his stall." She'd never told anyone at the office this. "My mother cleaned houses to send me to university. Then she got sick, and I came here for the scholarship because Nigerian hospitals couldn't." Her voice cracked. Ji-hoon stood and moved to the window, his back to her. For a moment she thought she'd said too much, crossed some professional line. Then he spoke, his voice rougher than she'd ever heard it. "I was 23 when my father called me home from studying in Boston. He'd made bad investments, trusted the wrong people. The company was bleeding money. The board voted to remove him." He turned to face her, and in the dim office light, he looked younger, more vulnerable. "They made him kneel, Amaka, in front of the entire board. The great Kang Ji-hoon, begging them not to destroy what he'd built. And I stood in that room watching, doing nothing because I was too afraid to speak." Her breath caught. "What did you do?" "I spent the next 5 years rebuilding everything. Worked 20-hour days. Made deals no one else would touch. Turned the company into something untouchable." His hands were clenched at his sides. "And I swore I would never beg anyone for anything. Never be vulnerable. Never let anyone see me as weak." He moved back toward her, and suddenly he was standing so close she could see the exhaustion he hid behind his perfect suits. "And then you walked into my world falling asleep in a classroom because you were too proud to quit, and suddenly I don't care about pride anymore." The air between them felt electric. Amaka's heart hammered against her ribs. "Ji-hoon." Her phone buzzed violently on the desk between them, shattering the moment. They both flinched. "Unknown number." She picked it up, frowning. "Hello." Silence. Then the line went dead. "Third time this week," she said, trying to laugh it off, but her hand was shaking. "Wrong number probably." Ji-hoon's expression had shifted. Something protective and dangerous replacing the vulnerability. Give me the number. It's nothing. Amaka. His voice was steel. Give me the number. If it happens again, you tell me immediately. Do you understand? She nodded, unnerved by the intensity in his eyes. He saved the number into his own phone, then looked at her. It's late. You should go home. But she saw it now, the reluctance in how he said it, the way his jaw tightened as if forcing himself to send her away. What about the Jakarta audit? Tomorrow. Tonight he ran a hand through his hair, a rare gesture of frustration. Go home, Amaka. Please. If you're enjoying this story and want to see what happens next, hit that subscribe button right now. Drop a comment telling me what you think Ji-hoon is hiding, and don't forget to like this video. It helps us create more stories like this. She left, but the feeling of his eyes on her followed her all the way to the elevator. The next weeks blurred together in a haze of late nights and growing tension. Ji-hoon found excuses to keep her working late. She stopped pretending she minded. They developed a rhythm, working in comfortable silence, then talking about everything except what was growing between them. One evening, as she was reaching for a file on the top shelf, she stumbled. Ji-hoon caught her, his hands on her waist, steadying her. For a moment they were frozen, her hands on his shoulders, his face inches from hers, both breathing too fast. His eyes dropped to her lips. She felt herself leaning in, drawn by gravity or madness or something that felt inevitable. His thumb traced a small circle on her waist, and the touch burned through the fabric of her blouse. The office phone rang, shrill and intrusive. They sprang apart. Ji-hoon answered it, his voice clipped and professional, but his eyes stayed on her. When he hung up, neither of them mentioned what had almost happened, but everything had changed. The office began to notice. Whispers followed Amaka through the hallways. The other assistants grew cold. During meetings, she caught executives exchanging knowing glances when Ji-hoon deferred to her opinion. One afternoon she found her desk supplies scattered on the floor. Small, petty, but the message was clear. You don't belong here. The breaking point came at a company gala. Ji-hoon had insisted she attend, had even arranged for a dress to be delivered to her apartment. Designer, expensive, perfect. You represent Kang Group now, he'd said when she'd protested. Dress accordingly. At the gala, she felt like an imposter among Seoul's elite. But Ji-hoon stayed close, introducing her as his assistant, ensuring no one made her uncomfortable. They were standing by the balcony, watching the party through the floor-to-ceiling windows, when he said quietly, You look beautiful tonight. Amaka's heart skipped. Mr. Kang. Ji-hoon. When we're alone, just... Ji-hoon. She looked at him, really looked at him, and saw something in his eyes that terrified and thrilled her in equal measure. The city stretched out below them, lights twinkling like fallen stars. Music drifted from inside, something slow and aching. In my culture, she said softly, we have a concept called Ubuntu. It means I am because we are. That a person is a person through other people. She turned to face him fully. You've been so alone, haven't you? Performing for everyone. Being what they need but never just being. His expression cracked open. How do you do that? What? See me. Just me. Do you have any idea how rare that is? She reached out without thinking, her fingers brushing his hand where it rested on the balcony railing. In Korean culture, there's a word my translator friend taught me. Jong. It means a deep emotional connection that can't be easily explained. Something that builds slowly and becomes unbreakable. You've been studying Korean concepts? His voice was rough. I wanted to understand you better. The confession hung between them. I wanted to understand why you make me feel. How do I make you feel? He turned his hand over, catching her fingers in his. Like I'm standing on the edge of something. Like one more step and everything changes. Take the step. His thumb traced her knuckles. Please, Amaka. Take the step. Before she could respond, a voice cut through the moment like a knife. How touching. They both turned to find a woman in a red dress approaching, her smile sharp and predatory. Choi Min-young, one of the company's senior executives and, according to office gossip, Ji-hoon's ex-girlfriend. Min-young, Ji-hoon said, his voice cooling instantly. The warmth from moments ago disappeared behind his CEO mask. He didn't drop Amaka's hand, though. That said everything. I wouldn't miss it. Min-young's eyes slid to Amaka, assessing and dismissing in one look. You must be the new assistant everyone's been talking about. The one who's special. The emphasis on the last word made it sound like an accusation. Amaka straightened her spine. Amaka Okonkwo. Pleased to meet you. I'm sure you are. Min-young's smile didn't reach her eyes. She turned back to Ji-hoon, deliberately angling her body to exclude Amaka. We need to talk. Privately. About the merger. Tomorrow. My office. It's urgent, Ji-hoon. She touched his arm, the gesture familiar and possessive. You know I wouldn't interrupt if it wasn't important. Something tightened in Amaka's chest watching them together. They had history, that much was obvious. A shared language of gestures and unspoken understanding that made her feel like an outsider despite everything. Ji-hoon's jaw tightened. He glanced at Amaka, and she saw conflict in his eyes. Duty versus desire. Business versus whatever was growing between them. I'll be right back, he said softly, squeezing her hand once before releasing it. But as Amaka watched him walk away with Min-young, disappearing into a private room, she knew something had shifted. The bubble they'd been existing in had just been punctured by reality. She stood alone on the balcony, the beautiful dress suddenly feeling like a costume, the party noise behind her like mockery. She didn't wait. She took a taxi home, ignoring the 3 calls from Ji-hoon that lit up her phone. In her apartment, staring at the designer dress that had briefly let her pretend she belonged in his world, Amaka finally let herself cry. Because she'd done the stupidest thing possible. She'd started to care about him. More than care. And that was a luxury she couldn't afford. The next morning, she arrived at the office determined to be professional, distant, safe. But Ji-hoon was waiting for her, and he looked like he hadn't slept. You left, he said as soon as she entered his office. You had business to attend to. That wasn't. He ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. Min-young is. Your past. Your business. None of my concern. Amaka set her bag down, kept her voice steady. You're my employer. I'm your employee. That's where the line is, and we crossed it. Last night was a mistake. Was it? He moved around his desk, closing the distance between them. Because it didn't feel like a mistake. It felt like the first honest thing that's happened to me in years. Ji-hoon. Don't. His voice was rough. Don't go back to calling me Mr. Kang. Don't pretend last night didn't happen. Don't do what everyone else does and treat me like I'm made of money instead of flesh and blood. Amaka's defenses cracked. What do you want from me? The truth. Do you feel this too? Or am I alone in it? The question hung between them, heavy with consequence. Amaka knew the smart answer, the safe answer. But when she opened her mouth, the truth came out instead. Of course I feel it. I'd have to be dead not to feel it. But that doesn't mean we can act on it. The power imbalance alone. I'll quit. She blinked. What? If that's what's stopping you, I'll step down. Promote someone else, make you equal in rank. Problem solved. You're insane. This company is your life. And it's killing me. He said it so simply, like a fact. Every day, playing the role, maintaining the image, making decisions that affect thousands of lives while pretending I don't feel the weight of it. And then you walked into my world falling asleep in a classroom because you were too proud to quit. And suddenly I remembered what it felt like to be human. Amaka's heart was hammering. We can't. The scandal alone would destroy both of us. You know what they'd say, that I slept my way to the top, that you're going through some crisis, that I fell for someone brilliant and beautiful who sees me as a person instead of a bank account? Yes, terrible scandal. He reached out, his fingers gentle as they tucked a loose braid behind her ear. I'm not asking you to marry me tomorrow, Amaka. I'm just asking you to let this be real. Whatever this is, let it be real instead of pretending it away. She closed her eyes, leaning into his touch despite herself. This is the worst idea either of us has ever had. Probably. He smiled then, small but genuine. Is that a yes? Before she could answer, his office door burst open. His secretary rushed in, face pale. Sir, we have a situation. The press, there are photos. From last night. Ji-hoon's expression hardened instantly. Show me. The photos were bad. Ji-hoon and Amaka on the balcony, standing too close, her hand in his, looking at each other like nothing else existed. The headlines were worse. Kang CEO's new foreign girlfriend. Billionaire's mystery woman. Who is the African beauty who caught Kang Ji-hoon? The articles were a mixture of curiosity and thinly veiled racism. Questions about her background, speculation about her intentions, comments about her appearance that made Amaka's skin crawl. Within hours, it had spread across social media. Her name was trending. People were digging into her life, finding her student photos, her immigration status, everything. We need to release a statement, the PR director said, having rushed to the office. Distance yourself from her. Clarify it was purely professional. No. Ji-hoon's voice was steel. Sir, the board is already calling. Your father is demanding. I said no. He looked at Amaka, and she saw the decision in his eyes. Prepare a different statement. Confirm the relationship. Make it clear she's under my protection, and anyone who has a problem with that can answer to me directly. The room erupted in protests, but Ji-hoon silenced them all with a look. After everyone left, he turned to Amaka. I'm sorry. I should have protected you better from this. You can't control the media. I can control how we respond to it. He took her hand, his grip firm and warm. Stay with me. We'll weather this together. And for a few days it seemed possible. Ji-hoon made good on his promise, releasing a statement that was both protective and defiant. He appeared at public events with Amaka by his side, his message clear. She was under his protection, and he wasn't backing down. But the pressure was immense. The board demanded meetings. His father, a formidable former CEO, returned from retirement to voice his disapproval in a tense confrontation Amaka overheard through closed doors. You're throwing away everything for what? For her? Have you forgotten what this company cost us? Amaka faced open hostility at the office. Whispers turned to outright snubs. Someone scratched her car. Another day she found hate messages slipped under her office door. Go back to Africa, in neat Korean characters. Through it all, Ji-hoon remained steadfast. He moved her to a safer apartment, hired security, held her on nights when the stress became too much. I won't let them break us, he promised. We've both survived worse than gossip and jealousy. But 3 weeks after the photos leaked, Amaka received a call from the university. Her scholarship was being reviewed. Questions had been raised about her conduct, and whether she was maintaining the program's standards. Her visa was suddenly under scrutiny. Everything she'd worked for, everything she'd sacrificed, was being weaponized against her. That evening, Ji-hoon found her packing. Rain had started to fall outside, drumming against the windows. What are you doing? What I should have done from the start. Her voice was calm, but her hands shook as she folded clothes. I'm resigning. I'll finish my degree quietly, keep my head down, and you can move on without the scandal. Amaka, no. We can fight this. Fight what? Your entire world trying to push me out? They're dismantling my life piece by piece, Ji-hoon. My scholarship, my visa, my reputation. How long before there's nothing left to fight for? I love you. The words stopped her cold. She turned slowly to face him, and the raw emotion in his eyes nearly broke her resolve. Rain streaked down the windows behind him. What? I love you. I've been trying not to say it because it felt too fast, too intense, but I don't care anymore. I love you, Amaka. And I'm not letting you walk away from us because they're scared of what we represent. The rain fell harder now, a steady percussion that matched her heartbeat. Amaka looked at him, this man who had seen her when she was invisible, who had chosen her when he could have anyone, who stood before her now offering his heart despite the cost. What I feel for you, she whispered. It may be real, but I don't know if it's enough. She walked past him out into the rain. The water soaked through her clothes immediately, cold and sharp. He didn't follow. He just stood at the window watching her go, the water streaming down the glass like tears. Back at his office later that night, Ji-hoon stared at the confidential file his assistant had placed on his desk with trembling hands. Inside was evidence that made his blood run cold. Amaka's resignation had been engineered. A rival executive, someone on his own board, had orchestrated everything. The media leak, the scholarship review, the visa investigation. all of it designed to remove her influence over him. The file included emails, payment records to journalists, even communications with immigration officials. Someone had spent weeks systematically destroying her life, and he'd been too blind to see it. His hands tightened on the folder until his knuckles went white. Amaka hadn't left because she didn't love him. She'd been pushed out, hunted, cornered until she had no choice. And someone was going to pay for that. In her small apartment across the city, Amaka sat in the dark, trying to convince herself she'd made the right choice. The rain had stopped, leaving the streets slick and reflecting the neon lights of Seoul. She'd changed into dry clothes, but she still felt cold, hollowed out. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She hesitated, remembering Ji-hoon's warning, but opened the message anyway. The words on screen made her blood freeze. Leave Korea if you value your future. Before she could process it, the lights in her apartment suddenly went out. Complete darkness. Her breath caught in her throat. In the silence she heard something. Footsteps in the hallway outside her door. Slow. Deliberate. Stopping right outside. The phone slipped from her hands, clattering on the floor. Amaka realized with crystalline clarity that walking away from Ji-hoon hadn't made her safe. It had made her a target. And somewhere in Seoul, hidden enemies were just beginning to move. If you made it this far, drop a comment telling me what you think is going to happen next. Who do you think is behind the threats? And don't forget to hit that subscribe button because part 2 is coming soon. And trust me, you won't want to miss what happens when Ji-hoon discovers the truth and Amaka realizes she's being hunted. Like this video if you're Team Amaka and Ji-hoon. And I'll see you in the next part.